Hello, I am very excited to bring Lou Redmond on today. He is a very successful meditation teacher. He's a transformational coach and mentor of teachers. And he previously worked in corporate. He had an awakening in 2015, which led him down the path that he's on now. And he draws from all and many wisdom traditions. And he's done an amazing job on Insight Timer. So I'm excited to speak with Lou and see what has contributed. We have an audience of people here today who are meditation teachers and coaches, and they are all developing their business. And we would like to just hear from you about what's worked. And today's topic is about Lou scaling his business from zero to six figures, over 100,000. Thanks, Lou. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm doing really well. This is so exciting. These are my people, so I'm excited to, yeah, just hang out and see if I can offer anything valuable.
Yes, can you just let us know some of the things that have been most helpful and maybe share a story about what has led you down that path?
Being willing to experiment, being willing to put yourself out there and try and get new opportunities. There was this mantra that I've developed, and you mentioned being, very successful and like, what's the equation to that? And my answer to that is like just throwing stuff at the wall and figuring it out on the way. So I don't think there's like a clear strategy to it. I believe it's one, just following your own inner guidance and trusting that spirit, that source is unfolding something in your life, that there's something that is a place where you can be, where your message, your teaching, whatever you're offering is going to add to that space. And this is kind of how we are all supporting each other, as Ram Dass says, how we're all walking each other home. And so trusting that, I think that's like the baseline foundation. And that starts from your own practice, that starts from other healing work that you might do, because often like that, I'm a big believer that the level of personal growth and development, I think it's like a, I don't know, a Hal Elrod line, like is the level of our success. That as we keep going inwards and doing our own healing work, that life happens. I'm not the big, I mean, the law of attraction can be cool and fun to like play with, and I believe in it in the sense of like we do we attract what we are, and as we are continuing to grow in our own journey, the people that I've been able to help or the people that you're going to be able to help, they tend to appear. And so that's like the passive, the yin aspect of this and the inner aspect of it. And I think like the yang aspect of it is really being willing to take a chance and put yourself out there and reach out to people. There's a story that I have early on in, I had quit my job in 2015 and was, at the time I was like, I'm going to write a book about my transformation and share it with people. And meditation was just something that I was just doing to stay grounded and centered after having this experience. And meditation was just something people were asking me. They're like, Lou, what happened to you? How did this happen? And like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I just started meditating and all these things happened. And I started sharing meditation with them. And that's kind of how that started to grow in that way. And then I had a coach a couple of years later where I had written my book, I was doing like a speaking thing, but I still wasn't finding really anything. I was doing a weekly meditation group, so I was still cultivating that sort of practice, but I wasn't making a living. Like to me, it was never about six figures. Like that's kind of, in some ways an ego thing. It sounds cool. For me, it was always, I just want to make a living doing this. Like I just
Mm.
want to do this work. And so it was in, I think, 2018, my coach was like, well, why don't you reach out to some schools and see if schools would be interested in this? And I just started sending emails and started reaching out, started just literally like you can go on Wikipedia. I'm sure ChatGPT can do this really now. It's like give me a list of all the schools in this county, and I would just call, email, call, email, call, email, and I was getting nothing. And I didn't
Oh.
even know what I was offering. I was offering like an after school meditation workshop and just not getting any feedback on any bites. And then or just saying people just saying no. And then there was one response where someone asked me if I had a program that helped teachers bring meditation and yoga into the classroom. I was also a yoga teacher and teaching in studios at this time as well. And
Mhm.
when I got this email, I was like, oh man, I don't have something like this. No, like, oh my gosh, I was gonna respond and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have it. But then I thought about it. I said, wait a second, maybe I do have something like this, meaning that knew it wasn't like they were asking me to build a house that is so outside of my zone of competence. They were asking me to do something in my wheelhouse. It's not something that I created yet, because you could say, Lou, what do you mean you didn't have it? But there's a great line from, I think, Richard Branson that says, when someone hands you a great opportunity, say yes and then go figure out how to do it. And that's really what I did. Someone was like, hey, do you want to do this training for teachers? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then okay, now I got to figure out, what do I price this thing at? Like, how do I do that thing? And what I did, I would never recommend someone doing. Maybe, I don't know. It was a weird way, but I priced it per teacher that signed up. And it was going to be a 4 week, month-long training where I'd come in each week. I'd train the teachers on how to bring yoga and mindfulness into the classroom. And I was charging like $125 per teacher that signed up, or $120, something like that. And they ended up having 22 teachers sign up. That ended up being a $2,200 gig. And I'll save the story of imposter syndrome for another time, because that really came up too during this time. But it was just a huge like shift in the sense that, I couldn't, making a living teaching a $30 meditation class, a $30 yoga class, like the time to return an investment doesn't make sense. But seeing that what I could do if I teach a 4 hour training for 2,200 bucks, that made sense. And so it just opened
Mhm.
up this whole world of, oh, I can go bringing this into schools, into companies. I can start this whole different sphere of this work. And I say, I mentioned before, like there's a mantra that came from this for me that I still use to this day. And it's, all it takes is one, because
Yes,
mi- I
absolutely.
sent thousands of email, literally literally
Oh, wow.
hundreds of email. I'll say thousands, maybe thousands over my time period, but hundreds of emails, dozens of calls, and just
Mhm.
one opportunity shifted everything. I went all in on this mindfulness education business and kind of focused it there. I went where the energy is. That's another kind of more, I guess, teaching around this, is like finding where the energy is there and leaning in and just experimenting. So
I wholeheartedly agree. That's how I started as well. Is just people asking you to teach something that you don't know how to do exactly, but you can figure it out. And it was the same way with the teacher trainings and people approaching and asking for that, and then finding a way, and always paying attention and noticing where you're feeling the energy and where also you're feeling the excitement and the passion, and I call it like the subtle light of your heart, where your heart's just kind of like, it feels expansive and it feels joyful, and to pay attention to those subtle feelings because they'll lead you to the next thing. And again, you only need the one that will lead you to the next step. So, Lou, can we get like hands on and tangible about how you actually did this? Are you going to share your screen with us and show us some of the steps that you've taken to
yeah, I
your
mean,
business?
I could share, I was trying to think of, and I know that I went long on that story, so apologies, but I hope that it was valuable to hear the full story. But yes, I could share some things. I mean, as far as the like actual, like the action steps of like reaching out to people, like is that something that's interesting to you, like of like a cold email?
I mean, absolutely. Anything, I would say the things that you find are most impactful, because I feel that oftentimes when we're looking to share our gifts and start, this work as a business, that we kind of overlook the small things and we feel isolated and kind of alone in what we're doing, and questioning, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to make an impact or lead anywhere? So if you can show us the small things that you feel actually do make an impact that have really helped you, that would be great.
Yeah, I think when I think about how I really achieved like the success or like where things started to flow, it is around understanding that the way that we share and the way that we embody this work and the way that we're offering and creating our guided meditations is another form. It's a form of attraction for clients, of course. We know this, like where you guys are in a meditation training, right? You know the power and the transformation of meditation. And for us, it's to me, it's like, okay, how do you learn how to become your own version of that? And I think that, and so I can share a little PDF that I've kind of come up with and might think of when you're sharing your content or when you're even engaging with like how I reached out to a school, like what is your value proposition that you're offering them? Like what are you actually offering their students? Is it education? Is it like your expertise where they're going to learn a lot about mindfulness or meditation? Are you offering them a entertainment, like you're making this fun for them? And so it's like understanding not just bringing, hey, I want to bring meditation to your school, but understanding how do you do it in your own genius, like finding your own genius to it. So I can share this
Mm.
little, like kind of, I call it like creativity archetypes. So you can see this page.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and you can use this is I use this for content, so creating meditations and how and just to think about where you live and where you want to live and where's most natural. We can embody all of these at different parts at different times, which is the essence of any kind of archetype that we have access to all of them. But you might find that you naturally are inclined to one. So this could be content goals, but this could also be workshop goals or your proposal goals and how you're putting yourself out there and positioning yourself. And so we could take a moment to briefly go through these. I can share that for me where I found my lane and where really how people listen to my meditations and then find me for coaching is really in this realm of being a vulnerable storyteller, really letting people in on what's happening in my life. Like transparency in some ways is one of my superpowers and just easier for me to share challenges and things that are going on that may, I don't know, some people don't feel as comfortable with. And that has been a big reason that people come to work with me. And then also
Yes, I'd like to just interject there
yeah,
and say
yeah.
that if you haven't visited Lou's YouTube channel, he shares on there, he's full transparency with all of his financials and exactly how he made income on Insight Timer. And he will kind of bear all. So there's a lot of valuable information there that I would check out.
Thank you for that. And I could show, if it's helpful, I mean, I could show the numbers on Insight Timer, how that breaks down, if that's interesting to people. I do have that, like, I can show like the,
Absolutely. We can, yeah, take a look at that. And maybe if you can guide people on how to build a following on Insight Timer, that would also be helpful because I think you have one of the biggest followings or quite a large following on Insight Timer.
it's, yeah, it's definitely up there. I think I'm almost at 50,000. So it's definitely in the maybe top, 5 or so percent. And obviously it's the Insight Timer. I got on it at 2016. So there was a different time and kind of rode a wave in that time with demand to teachers. Now there's a lot more teachers. That's not to say that you can't find a good space. And so I'll
Mhm.
just, briefly, like maybe not going through each one because it can take a couple minutes each, but just as you look at these, you can maybe get a sense of because that's an understanding of how you're going to go to Insight Timer and what's your intention. Do you want to be an educator? Are you an authority? Do you have a background in something else before you got into meditation that you can kind of be the person that brings meditation into biotech and that's like this expert authority that you hold. So thinking of, which one of these two or three, I think if you were going to create your content, like this is like understanding creating almost like your media company in a way of how you're
Mhm.
going to bring to Insight Timer. So if I went to, let's see what could be helpful. So I can just share like my dashboard on Insight Timer. This shows like total revenue I've ever made on Insight
Okay.
Timer.
The only thing you'd need to do is stop your share and then reshare again.
Oh, is it just shared the
Okay.
one screen?
hmm
Okay, got it, got it. Let's see. Let's see. I hope it can share. All right, everyone see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So this is total revenue on Insight Timer, and I can just share like a breakdown of does it when you change screens, do you still see the new screen?
I can see Insight Timer right now.
Okay, so it's not. So yeah, it's weird. It's not. It's only letting me share certain screens.
You can only share one screen at a time.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm trying to think what would be supportive here. So this is just a sense of this is from 2019. So they started paying out at teachers 2019. So just to give a sense of like what's possible, the core, if it's starting on Insight Timer, the way that I recommend newer people is free tracks because on Insight Timer, there's maybe 500 to 600,000 users of Insight Timer a day. Of those 500 to 600,000, 3.6% of those are actually paid. So 3.6% are taking their paid products, which are courses here, which I have, I think, 9 courses, and then premium tracks. So if you're starting on Insight Timer, just because your goal is to start getting plays and getting out there, I always recommend to start on free tracks because
Okay.
that's
And
you're
how
gonna
many free tracks did you create, or do you do it through a
yeah.
structure?
So I've created over probably 100 free meditations on Insight Timer. Yeah, easily over 100
Wow.
free tracks. And again, this is starting in 2016, so I have it's been 9 or so years of doing that. But yeah,
Mhm.
so and what's great, and there's another tool. So what I think a thing to think about too as you're creating both for Insight Timer is that you own the tracks, meaning you could put those tracks on YouTube, on other platforms as well. And so there's a tool called audioship.io, that if you create a meditation, you either work with an editor, there's some places that you can outsource editing, or there's some simple tools to use Audacity, and you can edit yourself in a there's a few things to do to work with background noise that's pretty simple, that helps to just minimize background noise, and you can kind of edit on Audacity. It's pretty intuitive, so I wouldn't get too intimidated. I know some people can be really
Mhm.
intimidated by the tech. And then you have your MP3, and it's like, okay, I want to start, I'll put it on Insight Timer, but it's also something to think of, okay, why not have it on YouTube too? And it's because there's, my one friend, Darius Bashar, he has a YouTube community called Artist Morning, and he has a lot of his meditations that do really well on YouTube and on Insight Timer. And so you post them there. So the way that I think of this content in general and the way that I've thought about it for Insight Timer is each week, or maybe each and every other week. I don't want to overwhelm anyone if this is like newer to you. Think of like what's your one teaching for the week, like your one teaching and theme. And what you do with that is you use a medium that feels natural to you. Like for me, the way that I would do this, I would have a blog, or I would write a newsletter for the week, and I would write it on, let's see, a track that I probably, yeah, here's a recent talk. I wrote this as a newsletter, Finding Beauty in the Struggle. And you can share, like, I could share my own financial struggles this year, particularly in these past couple months. So I know I'm coming in here like the successful teacher, but I am, have some challenges right now, and I'm super transparent about that with people. But let's go back. Here's three life changing questions to ask yourself. So that started as a newsletter. And then what I did is I take that piece of content, I write it on a newsletter, send it out, I record it as a talk, and then I also have created meditations from it. And then maybe like if I'm feeling like I have the energy, I might, share in an Instagram carousel. So the intention is you take one piece of content, which is just this blog, and you make it instead of doing like five different themes for the week, you just take one and you repurpose it. You use it as a talk. You think of, okay, well, if that's how do I make a meditation out of that theme? And that's where also I suggest,
That's a great idea, Lou. That's a way of creating content that I also follow,
yeah,
so that you're not splitting your attention in so many different directions and you have like one core focus.
Yeah, and
And
there's a way that you can systematize it too. Like, you just, okay, I do
mhm.
this, I do this, I do this, and it's now you're, in three different, you're doing multiple things with the same, like the same core idea. So you're not because that's almost often the hardest part is just getting the idea. And if you have a good idea and good way to work with it, then yeah, it makes things a lot easier.
And I just want to say a note here about if you're new to Insight Timer, there is kind of a quality of the audio that Lou is referring to. So just be aware of that. You want to have a professional mic and make sure that background noise is to a minimum. So just like how he gave those resources for audio editing, it's not huge rocket science, but it's something to be aware of because your track can be denied if the audio quality isn't good enough.
That's right. And what's cool about Insight Timer too, if some of you want to run retreats, now they have their retreats feature. I have not run a retreat, so I have not used this, but you can go and you can create your own retreat. And what's also cool about Insight Timer, which is probably one of its unique things, I don't have any live scheduled right now, but is you can have a live event. So similar to an Instagram live, you go live on their app. People who are on the app that are actually just looking for meditations or things to pop in, they pop into your live, and that's a good way to get in front of new people. And if you're on live, you can only promote stuff on Insight Timer, so you can't promote like your coaching off of Insight Timer. But if you have a retreat and someone comes to your live and they say, "Oh, that's really interesting. I really like what you had to share." You might point them to other content that you have, of course, on the app. And then it's also a way, I mean, retreats tends to need the most amount of time and trust to build, but it is a place where you can then say, hey, if you want to do this work in deep, we're going to Costa Rica or wherever you would have a retreat potentially, or just if you're in the States, you just do it in the States. You set that up wherever, yoga
Mhm.
retreat, meditation retreat. So it is, they are creating new features for teachers to rhyme, new
Yeah,
features
I
for
think
teachers
that's
to, yeah, succeed.
I think that's great. And if you're thinking about hosting a retreat, it doesn't have to be something exotic and big. It could literally be a 1 day retreat that's close by to where you live, something that's accessible both for you financially, where you don't have to put a lot of capital, where it's a little lighter and people feel more comfortable engaging in a retreat with you for less money until they get to know you. Now, Lou, looking at this, would you say that the biggest impact in terms of revenue generation is the courses?
Yes, courses and premium
Okay.
content is how you're gonna get paid, and they're paying around. They used to pay 15% a play. They're depending on the month, it might be like 12 to 15 cents a play. So yeah, having courses. So if you're going live, having courses that you can direct people to, they would have to have their premium pay. That's the thing. They just have to have the premium version of Insight Timer. Excuse me, in
Mhm.
order to take the courses. But that's
And
definitely like
how do you develop courses?
who.
Like, what's your format for that?
So it I think it starts before you develop the course. It starts thinking about what are your, I mentioned pillar content. I'm going to flip the words, and you ask yourself, what are my content pillars? Like, what are the 5 things that feel like are my wheelhouse that I love talking about that really excite me? Because those are going to give you clues to something that you can make then a longer term. You can make like a longer course out of it.
Mhm.
So like for example, when I think of my content pillars, it's motivation, it's empowerment, it's doing work that you love, confidence, and you can see how my themes of like motivation, inspiration, confidence, doing work you love. This is another one of confidence and creating momentum.
Wow,
So
your adult's bedtime story has is like through the roof,
yeah, that
as
was
well as learn to stop caring what other people think.
this is my first one. So this is definitely my most popular one. So that was one of my first ones, and it's amazing. I did this course in 2018, and you can see yesterday 16 people took it. So this is 7 years later, and people are still taking it. So it's really cool on Insight Timer that you can have this kind of impact, and it's happening while you sleep, which is really
And what's your
amazing.
revenue run rate right now per year on Insight Timer?
So I can show you. Let's see. I'll stop sharing here. I might as well just show you this kind of spreadsheet.
And while Lou's doing that, just to recap, he says go ahead and start with the free tracks. on Insight Timer. But first, before that, you want to create your profile. Then the free tracks. He did really well through courses. And now we're going to look at the revenue run rate through Insight Timer.
So this is 2024, and they pay out like the month before. I calculated as like January's payout, which was December 2023. But they had a big thing change in June of 2024 where they stopped paying teachers for engagement. We used to get paid when people commented and we responded on courses, which was amazing. So you could see like that was, a big amount potentially if you get a lot of comments on your courses because you're making literally $15 to $20 just to respond to someone and answer the questions or say, yeah, thanks for, thanks. I'm glad that you liked it. So it was they stopped doing that for a long time. And so honestly, Insight Timer was losing money for years and they had to make some big changes in 2024. I have a conversation on my podcast with the CEO of Insight Timer if anyone's kind of is interested in more of like the backstory and understanding the platform and the people there. But you could see that they did something really cool of creating a teacher assistant fund for the until this new model started. And so you could see I was averaging around 3,100, 3,200, 3,200. And then once we lost the way that they're paying teachers, my revenue has dropped pretty dramatically. So you could see in 2024, it went down 1,000. It went down, it's around 2,000. That gave me 36,000 for the year. That's 3,000 less than the year before, and then the year before it was like 2 or 3,000 less than the year before. So for me, it's been a continual decrease. That's not to
And
say
that's due to the change in the model.
change
How
of the
about
bottle.
now? Like, where are you at month by month for 2025?
Yeah, for 2025, I don't have that prepared in like a spreadsheet, but it continued
Okay.
to go down to it went down to 1,500 for 1 month. It got as low as 1,000 for the month, which is tough when it was, kind of it was a pillar of my income, 3,000 and 1,000. It was sizable when I'm making about 10, 7 to 10,000, sometimes $12,000 a month. That went down, and the lowest it went to like 1,000, and then it kind of bumped back up to 1,200 recently. So that's hopeful. But I do
Mhm.
have, I mean, I have a friend, my friend Charles Freely, who's an example of someone who's making. He's said this to me privately, but I don't want to maybe share his actual number out loud. But you can see in my courses, I would have like maybe if I have a good course right now, it maybe gets 50 plays a day. He has a course that's getting 2,000 plays a day. So if you could just do the math, he's making a sizable amount just through Insight Timer because Insight Timer started rewarding people for return rate. So if your track brings people back to the app, and he has two very long courses that are doing that very well. And so they also changed their algorithm to being more AI driven. And so for me, who had more popular content that was older, those popular content don't perform as well because they're more about AI driving tracks that bring people to the app. And since my tracks have been around for a while and more popular content often is just being around for a while, it has a lower return rate, so it gets promoted less. I know that's probably too much in the weeds that I need to share,
Yeah,
but
that's
that's
okay.
yeah, but it is an example of someone who is like really really thriving, making, let's just say he makes this amount in 2 months on Insight Timer, so he's doing
Mhm.
really well.
And just to mention too on lives, do you think that lives are a good use of time on Insight Timer?
I think it's a great use of time for a few reasons. One, to just practice, especially if you're newer, to practice holding a class, to practice facilitating a space. It's a unique space because it's like an Instagram live. You don't see anyone. They can comment, but you don't see anyone. So it's a little different than a Zoom room. It's a little different than in person, but it's a unique open space. So it's interesting to navigate a very open space, an uncontained space. And so it's good practice to try out new themes. Like, hey, you might have a theme that I like to think of content almost like how I'm into stand-up comedy. And so the way that comics build their hour-long set is they try a bunch of material at smaller clubs. They see what resonates, what people laugh at, and they take that little piece and they try more stuff. And they take that little piece that works and they try more stuff. And so my
Mhm.
course, my most popular course on not caring what other people think, it was born from a piece of content around the same topic where
Oh,
it did
wow.
really well, and someone's like, Lou, you should do a course on this. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Like the people really like this theme. And so I did a course on it, and it was great. So lives are a great place to test content, to test, be in conversation with people, to just
Oh,
learn from
that's
people.
great.
And
That's great advice.
you can get donations too on lives.
Mhm.
It's gone down over because there's so many lives, but yeah, you can also get donations. Insight Timer does plan to run a paid class version, so you can actually charge for your live. But in the beginning, I would recommend you just doing the free and just building your audience too on there. And it's just really fun too. It's a really fun community, so that just being in there, you're gonna people just enjoy it. And if you're a newer teacher, it's such great practice.
It is because it's a meditation community. So you're going to find the people that are looking for what you have to offer. Now, we are going to close this portion. And Lou, I would just like to ask, if there was one piece of advice or the biggest impact that someone could make in developing their business. Because what I often found is that revenue and impact tend to go hand in hand. What would you like to share about that to our community?
I think it's the first thing that I shared around just obviously being clear internally and like trusting and following that guidance, and following the sparks of where you notice you take a step back. No, you take a step forward, and life takes two steps towards you. Like, because you might take some steps forward and there's nothing. Okay, doors closed. Take another step forward, doors closed. Again, this is coming back to like letting yourself experiment. All it takes is one. And then when you take a step and life takes a couple steps to you, like, oh, okay, let me lean in this direction a little bit. And like I said, I don't have like a clear 1 + 2 = strategy. I do believe this is a hero's journey, and we all have our own unique path to walk. But also just owning your value too. Like, not you might be newer, but like understanding that what you have to offer has value, and figuring out the way that I think of like actually how do you make 6 figures, 3 sources of solid income. For me, that has always been Insight Timer, one-on-one coaching, and some kind of group program or in-person stuff. And so thinking of what are those three for you, actually do the numbers. Like, what do you want to make? How do those break out? Like, actually, like, envision what does that look like? It looks like 4 clients, one-on-one. It looks like this many in-person stuff, just so your brain can psychologically see, oh, that's what's possible. Because until we see it, it's hard. It's like it kind of feels ethereal. So really taking
Right.
time to actually like do your numbers and actually create a little bit of a vision to how you're going to make that on a very just concrete
Mhm.
way.
So what I'm hearing from Lou is, taking the spark, connecting it with a structure where you can see it and putting it out there for yourself. Thanks so much for your time and energy. I know you also had a free offering. You're welcome to share that too
Yeah, I'd love
here
to
in the group chat.
I'd love to share that. So this is it's a free course on creating meditation scripts. Now you're all probably already doing this, but I've had people that take this course and they've created 100 meditations. They're like, this gave me new ideas. Like, this is really something that I was gonna sell at first, but I'm like, let me just give away something really good for free. And so I see this as an art. I really do see meditation as like one of my arts. And so I hope this
Mhm.
course helps you spark your art and your creativity. And feel free to shoot me a message or a voice note through there. I love just hearing the stuff that you're creating. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lou, for your time.